While most of the attention around President Trump's visit to the Middle East has been around the offer of a Qatari royal family airplane, he has done one thing which counts as potentially the most substantial single initiative he has undertaken so far in his second term. It has some of his critics actually supporting his action, which takes some doing, but at the same time it has seasoned commentators confused because they still keep trying to interpret Trump on the same basis as any previous president, on which basis what he did doesn't necessarily make perfect sense. So let's discuss. This visit has, of course, been largely about promoting American business abroad, exploring areas of mutual interest with some of the richest countries in the world. And all of that has been going as well as you would expect. Big investment promises made, all pretty conventional going. But clearly, it's been pretty lucrative for numerous companies and numerous people. Maybe even Trump himself, although don't expect a press release about that part. If Trump's demonstrated unusual apparent success in getting business deals flowing is surprising, well, it's partly explained by his relegation of any moral concerns, any human rights issues, frankly any concerns whatsoever, to a level below that of seizing financial opportunities. In fact, Trump even made a feature of this. In a speech he made in Saudi Arabia, he made a big thing of declaring that the United States was done telling people in the Middle East how they should live their lives, de facto denouncing US foreign policy approaches for the past few decades. He accused his predecessors of, quote, intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand. And obviously that was wrong, because that's Steve Witkoff's job. Okay, he didn't say that last bit, that's me. He told them that the US would encourage them to chart your own destinies in your own way, which is a startling statement of policy. And I expect many European countries will be wondering if this now means that J.D. Vance and Elon Musk will stop campaigning for far-right parties in their elections and lecturing them about how they should be taking up J.D. Vance's special version of free speech. I'm guessing probably not, but who knows. Anyway, it turns out that deals flow so much more liberally if you don't have any guardrails. So if your only foreign policy success criteria is money, I mean, nobody would say that it shouldn't be one of your criteria, then it has been a big success by all accounts. But in amongst all the filthy lucre, there was another moment that stood out. And this was Trump's announcement that he would be lifting sanctions against Syria. This came as Trump had tea with the new Syrian president, Ahmed al-Sharaa, whose forces ousted the brutal dictator Bashar al-Assad and who had shown encouraging signs in the eyes of many observers of wishing to bring the country back to a stable footing. Trump obviously was taken with him, calling him a great young attractive guy with a very strong past who is a fighter. Being a bit more specific about that very strong past, he was of course actually a former jihadist who until recently had a $10 million bounty on his head. No previous US president would likely have agreed to a meeting with him at this point, and certainly it's hard to imagine any of them being so quick to lift sanctions. When he announced it, saying that he was committed to standing by Syria at this critical juncture, he got a spirited round of applause from his audience, along with a standing ovation from the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. "Oh, what I do for the Crown Prince," Trump said. Now, if you're a seasoned Trump watcher, and aren't we all in these crazy times, two things should strike you as remarkable in all of that. One, Trump standing by a country that's been brought to its knees and is currently in poverty. And two, Trump generously giving the credit to someone else. These are not things we've seen much, if at all. Now, we'll come back to what's going on with those in just a moment because it's important. While various people were, in spite of themselves, praising this act, because a lot of people are seeing the new Syrian regime apparently trying to build an inclusive and fairer society by the standards of the country in the past anyway. Some seasoned hands were expressing puzzlement. So Trump's former national security advisor and current day harshest critic, John Bolton, said that Trump's move didn't make sense. He told CNN that if Trump wanted Syria to be given a chance to succeed, he should have levied some conditions on the lifting of those sanctions. He should have told al-Sharaa to carry out, for instance, a full assessment of what the former regime did with American hostages, that they should commit not to allow Turks to have undue influence in northern Syria, and that preferably they should kick the Russians out of their naval base. Lifting the sanctions without asking for any or all of those in return, he said, well, it was hardly what you would call the art of the deal. For me, this makes the same mistake that people made when they used to express their astonished confusion as to why Trump was apparently making concessions to President Putin over Ukraine right at the start of his involvement before talks had even happened. It comes from making the mistake of thinking of Trump as a US president who does what presidents conventionally do, looks at the problems in a country or region and think, what would be the best here for regional stability, for the people of this country, and also by extension for the interests of the United States. Let's be clear, based on how we have seen Trump behave to date, he couldn't care less about Syria and its people. He's not demanding concessions from al-Sharaa because it's not him he's making a deal with. Trump is establishing as strong a relationship as he can with the strongman leaders of the Arab Gulf states, some of the richest countries in the world. And his attribution gives it away. Oh, what I do for the Crown Prince, he said. Trump never gives away the credit, except this time. The giving of the credit was the point. It was the subject of the deal. He lifted sanctions because the Crown Prince wanted him to. Trump's America, again, maybe Trump himself, but certainly America, is doing serious business with Saudi Arabia and the others, possibly to the benefit of over $1 trillion. We don't know the full extent of the quid pro quos, but clearly one of the things Trump can give some of these people is America's influential role in the Middle East. So, bam, no quibbling, no haggling, sanctions lifted on Syria, credit given in public to the Crown Prince. That's one of Trump's items in a multi-item deal ticked off. Like Ukraine, Syria is a piece on the board, not the object of the game. For the Gulf Arab states, they have had a period where Iran had expanded its influence in Syria, which they wanted to end, where they had been kept out by ongoing civil war. Since the new regime rose to power, Saudi Arabia and Qatar have been working on getting it reintegrated into their world and into the international community. Anything Trump says about him standing by Syria is just blah, blah, blah. He will likely consider favourably any moves requested of him by the Crown Prince in the future. But again, Trump cares about the poor people of Syria no more than he cares about the poor people of Gaza. And we know he doesn't care about them, because his first plan was to have them all expelled from their country to live instead in neighbouring countries, the exact details of which he wasn't really fussed. He hadn't counted on those countries saying no to him, of course, but he certainly didn't change his mind on any basis of suddenly discovering compassion for and caring about the justice for the civilians of Gaza. But he does care about the war in Gaza, because the Arab states care deeply about the war in Gaza. It has been noted in this trip that Benjamin Netanyahu has been reduced to an outsider, an observer status. There has been clearly a significant distance growing between them as the US has waded in to negotiate directly with the Arab states, with Iran, even with the Houthis. The thing is that Trump perhaps sees as his most proud achievement from his first term is the Abraham Accords. He, thanks to his son-in-law Jared Kushner, was able to get several of the Arab states normalizing relations with Israel, largely because his tendency towards norm breaking actually did genuinely create an opportunity. Because up until then, the received wisdom had always been none of the Arab states would agree to anything until the Palestinians had achieved their two-state solutions. But Palestinians had passed up opportunities to gain exactly that, and generally were holding out, and rightly or wrongly, it turns out that some of the Arab leadership were becoming frustrated with the Palestinians, so it turned out that they were open to the idea of moving ahead anyway, which of course some of them did. It was a big moment for Trump, maybe the only thing he did in that 4 years that much endured. Now, Trump would like to get others signed up, but unsurprisingly, none of them want to do anything of the sort, so long as Israel is continuing to reduce Gaza to rubble and is currently actively starving its population with a blockade of food supplies. So Trump has been becoming frustrated with Netanyahu, having shaken things up with his surreal Trump-Gaza Riviera idea. He's seeing Israel simply committed to continuing the war, apparently with no end in sight. So he's getting impatient because he wants what he wants and he wants it quickly, which means that while he remains supportive of Israel, he's not appreciative of the fact that it is now apparently committed to a forever war. So Trump is in Saudi Arabia and Qatar and the UAE, and it would be a lot more conducive if this issue in Gaza could be brought rapidly to a close. Of course, Netanyahu's in a fragile coalition, where accepting such a conclusion would probably be the end of his government and possibly the end of his liberty, because he has a number of legal issues waiting poised for that moment. Trump is also not happy that Israel has taken a very aggressive stance against the new regime in Syria. Since the new government was formed, Israeli forces have pushed into Syria, carried out numerous airstrikes targeting the old regime's weaponry. So again, not entirely helpful to the positive objectives that Trump had before him with the Gulf Arab states' leaders. In the meantime, Trump is also lobbying for a peace deal with Iran, one that comes up with a formula where the country will abandon any attempts to develop a nuclear weapon in return for the lifting of sanctions. This is something, by the way, that Qatar is particularly lobbying for, so another one of those very helpful points of agreement. In some ways, Trump's last few days have been so smooth for him because he's dealing with countries that have got a lot of money that they are willing to spend with the United States. They are people who have their own vision for what they want to happen in the region. They're not asking the United States to make it happen for them, or indeed to do anything particularly major or onerous. And Trump is treated with all the gold bling style that he appreciates. He's treated respectfully and all of that. It's no wonder that this was the first region he went to after he first became president back in 2017. Here he is again for his first visit in 2025. If a new government in Syria works out, perhaps people will in retrospect praise his gracious wisdom, his steadfast support for a downtrodden people. But no, while he certainly had a good week, and for once probably mostly done good by his country, that is not the story of why Trump raised sanctions on Syria. Slight complication, of course. Technically, Trump can't unilaterally raise those sanctions. Congress has to be involved. Probably won't be a problem, but I'd say it is good to be reminded from time to time that he's not yet the God Emperor he might sometimes give the impression that he is. Not yet.